Fundamentalists and atheists don't like each other very much.
Oh, come now, I don't think that's fair. I like fundamentalists. It's right there in the name. Fun. They are always terrific fun to take the mick out of, as they spout ludicrous nonsense all over themselves. And, you know, they are more than a little bit mental. I can't get enough, really. Now, because of that, I would not be surprised to find out that they don't like me very much, but that's to be expected when you are as good looking and shiny as I am. Haters gonna hate.
But one thing they agree on is that evolution contradicts the Bible, but they're both wrong.
Oh, I forgot to mention, it is of course our mate Redeemed Zoomer again. And last time we had a fun little chat, he did in fact claim that in this video, he had shown how evolution is totally compatible with the Bible and all that jazz. To which I posited that he more than likely didn't know what the hell evolution even is. So let's put that theory to the test, shall we? Because while science is about trying to prove yourself wrong, sometimes it's just inevitable that you're going to prove yourself right.
People think this because the Bible says God made everything, and they assume that if life developed by the natural process of evolution, it means God didn't make it.
Well, you're already skipping over a few important steps there, buddy boy. The Bible does say that God invented all the things, yes, but A, it says he made them essentially fully formed, cause B, at no point does it even mention that he created single-celled organisms at all, and then ushered them through all the stages of evolution to arrive at what they are now, or at least, you know, were, on the day that he, well, created them, which is a weird thing to do, if that's how you did it. Almost like he didn't, because the people who wrote the book had no idea how any of it actually worked. Oh hey, just like you.
But they would say God made them, even though they developed by a natural process. God didn't just snap his fingers and make them fully formed, they developed over time.
That's not the same thing, mate. Human development is a strict process that, while it involves change, is pretty much a completely predictable sequence that doesn't really change based on almost anything. A 70-year-old human in basically any country from any class who has had any kind of life, on average, is going to be essentially indistinguishable from any other. Evolution via natural selection makes entirely new creatures, given the right environmental pressures. What a shock that the first thing you said about it is, ironically, fundamentally wrong.
But God was still in charge of the whole process, because God made space and time. So God made things evolve exactly as he wanted them to.
Wow. Just wow. So aside from the fact that, again, at no point such a process is described in the Bible, you think it would be, you know, because that's how he did it, and they just love pretending to know how he did stuff. But better yet, God, perfect as he is, with infinite power, as he is supposed to have, according to your book though, he thought the best way to create things, the most efficient and all-lovingest, was a brutal process that destroyed 99% of all creatures that have ever existed. What a completely ridiculous thing to say. I mean, give it to the fundies. They might be wrong and dumb, but at least their beliefs are consistent. This shit is just idiotic.
Yes, evolution depends on random mutations, but nothing is truly random since God controls everything.
If it's not random, if God is deliberately controlling things to get to his intended goal, why is it such a mess? Why are there thousands of changes happening from generation to generation within each organism? Changes that often change back entirely. That's at least part of the reason that certain changes take millions of years to take permanent root, because the changes can be fleeting. If God were genuinely in charge of that shit, he could change things in a few thousand, maybe even a few hundred years, instead of the meganums, look it up, it takes for substantial change to happen.
Proverbs 16:33 says that even when humans make a supposedly random decision, like rolling dice, God still determines the outcome.
Just a quick note, I don't know what you think your specific position on free will is, but if you think that's literally true, then free will is absolutely not a thing in your version of Christianity. God knowing the outcome of everything, magical free will or no, it, well, doesn't mean anything.
In the Bible, there are two ways that God does things. The first is supernaturally, like the parting of the Red Sea, where God actually suspends the laws of nature to directly use his miraculous power.
Well, I would argue that he doesn't do them at all, but especially the suspension of natural law shit. Funny thing is, every time supernatural power is invoked in the Bible, The events in and around those moments are utterly untestable and left behind zero evidence of actual miracles happening. The best case is that there is a thing that exists in the world, like that one rock with the big crack in the middle, where they will claim essentially God did it. But even then, those natural features can in fact be explained by nature. Shonk.
But God also does things providentially, like in the stories of Esther and Joseph, where God arranges all events in history to accomplish his purpose. That's why Genesis 50:20 says, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good."
Even if there were a God, there's just no way to know that things don't just happen completely out of the guy's control. And then when something happens that he spins in his favor, oh yeah, that was my plan all along. Of course, anything in the early Bible is more than likely just more shit that never happened. But yeah.
Who caused Joseph to be sold into slavery? Was it his brothers or God? The answer is both. His brothers meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
I'm sorry, but no, not according to your interpretation of determinism. If God planned it, if God made it happen, if every step, including their malice, was God's decision, then those guys had literally no agency. They couldn't mean for it to be anything, because meaning for good or evil requires a choice, something they apparently had no ability to govern. So God meant it for evil, and allegedly for good too, but what do they say? The ends don't justify the means. Committing atrocities for the greater good never really works out, mate.
God is like the author, and our universe is like a story that the author is writing. Just because things cause other things in stories doesn't mean the author didn't cause all of it.
Right, my point exactly. Also, holy shit, way to make existence sound completely pointless. You're all just part of a story I made up to make myself look good. Also, it makes any and every divine punishment sound like hypocritical insanity. God made you kick that nun down some stairs. Well, time to suffer eternal punishment for that crime that I made you commit. What an absolute lunatic of a cosmic narcissist.
So, creationists would say that the creation of all life in the world was supernatural, but we would say that the creation of the world was providential, and the evolution of all life is something that God wrote into the story of our world.
You point out where he wrote that a population's core genetic makeup changes over time, changing one animal into another type of animal, and that it is caused by changes in the environment that the animal is in. And I'll point you to something that, much like God, doesn't appear to exist.
But even if evolution is theoretically compatible with creation, people still make a lot of biblical objections we need to address.
I guess the main one being that they aren't even theoretically compatible. They aren't compatible at all. Special creation at no point posits that animals are going to change. It at no point posits that they started as something else. It explicitly claims that all animals were created by God the way that they are. Not only that, but it makes zero sense for a God that can create a universe in, again, explicit chunks, one part at a time, a la let there be light, would need to make anything in such a manner.
Genesis 1 says the earth was made in 6 days, but we have to ask what day means here. Moses, who wrote Genesis 1, also writes in Psalm 90 that a day for the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. At least that's how Peter interprets Moses in 2 Peter.
Holy shit, that is vague. Hey, it means this in the Bible. At least that's what one guy interpreted another guy saying at some point, maybe, about a book that was written hundreds of years before he was born. Also, 1,000 years is hardly the billions it would need to be for the actual start and end of the biblical timeline to actually line up with reality. The universe is definitely not the 12 to 14,000 years old or so that would make it. Not even goddamn close.
The Bible and modern science teach us time is relative. After all, the ancient Near Eastern culture that produced Genesis had a much more flexible concept of time, because they didn't have clocks like we do.
There is just so much wrong with that. Where do you even get this shit, dude? First off, time being relative, a la the theory of relativity, is not the same thing as you are posing it as. And there's absolutely no way that the Bible means it in a curvature of space-time way that Einstein did. Yet another thing that God forgot to mention, apparently. And second, ancient cultures did not have some loosey-goosey understanding of time. Regardless of their potential lack of frigging clocks, they had a fairly rigid understanding of the movement of time based on the sun and the stars. Just because they might not have been able to measure it down to the femtosecond doesn't mean that what they thought of as a day wasn't pretty much exactly the thing we think of as a day. And to claim otherwise is historically illiterate drivel.
A day for them wasn't defined by this idea of 24 hours, it was defined by the sun, which wasn't visible in the sky until the fourth day. So it doesn't make sense to say that the days in Genesis are literal 24-hour Earth days.
How does it keep getting dumber and dumberer? Just because the stupid book doesn't understand that daylight comes from the sun, not vice versa, doesn't mean that the people of the ancient whenever thought that day just meant sun up, sun down, doesn't matter how long it is, because it was always the same amount of time. Also, that completely screws your idea anyway, because essentially, until that day when the sun did the do, it would have made it an infinite day, or perhaps no day at all, since no sun would be no day, making that, at the very most, 3 normal days as part of it. This is the problem with this kind of attempted biblical compatibilism with science. The second you start trying to answer questions, you raise 1,000 more, because these things were never meant to achieve the same goal. One is a set of explanations not meant to be questioned, and the other is a set that came from actually answering questions without the need to end with God did it.
If you have a more flexible definition of day, then Genesis 1 lines up beautifully with the biological timeline of when things developed on Earth.
If your definition of things are completely meaningless, then you can make any stupid shit fit with anything else. Amazing. That has got to be one of the shittest arguments I've ever heard from any theist or anyone else, ever. If not just the shittest, because it's literally infinitely broad. And the fact that you think that makes it line up beautifully is even worse, because you have this 1 day definition, and then it's also some other indeterminate length of time that has to be multiple different lengths of time. That's not beauty, it's utter chaos.
First, light became visible on Earth, then the Earth was covered in water, then volcanic action made dry land appear, then photosynthetic life cleared the sky so you could see the sun, moon, and stars.
The constant pretending that ancient people had any idea how any of this shit works is exhausting. Also, that's not how this shit works. Plants don't clear ash from the sky. While, okay, some amount of it will be accrued into plant matter, it mostly falls on the lands and over the oceans, often strangling the life out of any vegetation. You dense asshole. So a time where the earth is choked with the stuff, no life of that kind could even exist, let alone clear it away. Fact is, it wasn't until the earth stopped being a volcanic wasteland, and these events mostly cleared, that photosynthetic life really could even start to form. Christ, I knew you didn't know anything about anything, but your scientific illiteracy has surprised even me.
Remember, the Bible doesn't say the sun, moon, and stars were created on day 4, just that they appeared in the sky on day 4.
What in the ever-loving Godzilla excrement is that supposed to mean? No, you can't keep doing this. This isn't just historically and scientifically illiterate, it's just illiterate. When the Bible, especially early Genesis, says that shit appears somewhere, it is explicitly telling you that it appeared there because God put it there because he created it. No one thinks that the stars and the moon and everything else were just being stored up God's galactic arsehole or something like that. This is the most painfully desperate attempt to make this crap fit that I think I've ever heard. God damn it.
Science has revealed that before photosynthetic life produced oxygen, the sky was too thick and cloudy to see the sun, moon, and stars.
Science has revealed, ew, do not use your disgusting theist talk around here when referring to things that you don't understand. Which is everything, but still, we discover things with science. It doesn't reveal, it finds. If anything, we reveal it using science to dig through the endless shit between us and answers. Revelation suggests things just appearing with zero effort. Science is work. Theism, on the other hand, is hanging around saying, hey man, what if something stupid made the earth? It is asinine. And that's all before we get into the utter scientific gibberish that you just spouted. Before photosynthetic life formed, there were likely millions of years of basically completely clear skies. And in fact, when they did appear, they started pumping out all sorts of gases, making the sky more hazy than before. You really need to stop getting your science from, well, I can only assume you are just making up what you think happened from a vague understanding or incredibly basic pop science. Please, for the love of your God, actually read something before making one of these idiotic videos. I swear to atheismo, it won't kill you. Your ignorance, on the other hand, may well kill me.
Then the Cambrian explosion produced lots of aquatic life, the water creatures, and after that, mammals formed on land, and then humans formed.
So we're just going to ignore the fact that the Bible says fish and birds. Yet the Cambrian explosion happened about 300 or 400 million years before the first birds would have taken flight, since they evolved in the late Jurassic era. Honestly, I really didn't expect you to get this much wrong. It's astonishing. Again, I have been ignoring his videos where he compares different sects of Christianity because, I really don't give a shit about that. They all believe the same basic stupids, and that's all that matters to me. But if there is anyone who does care, you really should check. This guy is shockingly popular, and every single thing I've heard him say hasn't just been wrong, but catastrophically so. It's almost impressive.
Genesis 1 first says God created Adam, or man, but then it says God created Ha-Adam, or the man, which implies first a general creation of human creatures, and then a specific creation of Adam.
Is this that thing? Well, you see, Adam and Eve's kids didn't have to bang each other / their mum, because actually there were other people created at the same time. They just aren't ever referenced, or seemingly exist at all. Also, for some reason, this very specific family is talked about and did things in the Garden of Eden that also screwed everyone over, including the people who literally didn't even have the chance not to do sin in the garden. It is just never ending with the explanations that only add more confusion, isn't it?
Some people say God made Adam from the dust, so that means Adam did not come from other creatures. But the Bible says you were made from the dust, but you still had ancestors, so why couldn't Adam have ancestors as well?
Oh, hey, yeah, remember when this was supposed to be about evolution? And, I wonder why the first man might be considered to not have ancestors. Perhaps it's the fact that at no point is it even remotely suggested that he did. Or the fact that while humans are in a very literal sense made from stardust, Adam, at least in the book though, is in a very literal manner made from ground dust. Hell, God breathes life directly into this goddamn Gumby mother fricker. Not to mention the fact that God proceeds to explicitly make Eve out of one of the guy's ribs and explain that one without introducing yet another bajillion contradictions. I dare you.
Science has revealed that the first single-celled life did come from the ground, and everything else is descended from that.
Well then why wasn't that brought up? Oh right, because again, how would people from the stupid ages have known that? They were in the stupid ages. They were stupid, not in a literal sense, but they just couldn't have known this shit unless the guy who made it happen told them. The fact that he didn't tell them any of this suggests that no one told them anything and they just made up a story to explain what at the time couldn't be explained. Like how basically all religious creation stories work, you dumb asshole.
But some people ask, what about the image of God? Because if humans gradually evolved from animals, then at what point did we start being made in the image of God?
I think the second some human went, I'm making a god. You know what? He's going to be like me. And because I want him to be like me, I'm like him. And circle down the drain of stupidity it all goes. Frankly, the only thing that makes me wonder about humans being created in the image of God is that everything the guy does is so incredibly self-defeating and stupid. At the very least, Redeem Zuma might be a perfect replica of him. Bye!